6 feet beneath your home, the ground holds a secret that modern construction often ignores. At that depth, the Earth stays at a remarkably stable temperature, usually around 55 F. It barely matters whether it is the dead of winter or the peak of summer. While the air above swings wildly between freezing cold and punishing heat, the soil below remains calm, steady, and predictable. For thousands of years, human beings understood this hidden advantage. Greek philosophers, Roman engineers, and Persian builders all found ways to work with the Earth's natural thermal stability. Yet in the modern world, we are told that comfort depends on furnaces, air conditioners, compressors, ductwork, and monthly utility bills. A giant industry has convinced society that mechanical climate control is not just helpful, but necessary. But the real science of comfort begins somewhere much simpler. It begins underground, where the Earth itself behaves like a natural thermostat. This is not folklore or romantic nostalgia. It is a measurable physical reality. Long-term soil temperature records gathered across the United States show the same pattern again and again. At roughly 6 to 10 feet underground, temperatures remain within a surprisingly narrow range for most of the year. In many places, that range falls between 48 and 62 degrees F. What makes this fact so striking is that it holds true across dramatically different climates. In Minnesota, where winter air can plunge far below zero, the ground at 6 feet remains well above freezing. In Arizona, where summer heat can become brutal, the soil at that same depth rarely becomes extremely hot. Government data, independent field measurements, and scientific modeling all confirm the same conclusion. This is not a local quirk. It is not a rare geological exception. It is a broad, repeatable pattern found across large regions. Beneath the chaos of surface weather, the Earth maintains a stable thermal baseline that remains one of the most underused resources in architecture. The reason for this stability is rooted in basic physics. Heat moves through soil by diffusion, a slow process in which thermal energy spreads gradually through dense material. At the surface, temperature changes rapidly. Days heat up, nights cool down, winter freezes, and summer scorches. But as those temperature swings try to move downward, the Earth absorbs and weakens them. The deeper you go, the less of the surface turbulence survives. Daily fluctuations disappear first. Seasonal fluctuations fade more gradually. By the time you reach greater depths, even the difference between January and July has become faint. Around 10 feet underground, the temperature curve flattens dramatically. The soil no longer reacts strongly to short-term weather. Instead, it reflects a long, slow average of the surrounding climate. In effect, the ground acts like a giant thermal battery. It stores heat when conditions are warm, and releases it slowly when conditions are cold, buffering the extremes above. That is why both ancient builders and modern passive designers have looked underground for answers. The Earth is not just dirt beneath a building. It is part of the climate system itself. Long before modern science gave this process a technical explanation, ancient builders had already learned how to use it. In ancient Greece, the relationship between houses and the sun was treated as practical knowledge rather than abstract theory. In Xenophon's writings, Socrates describes the ideal house as one that faces south. In winter, when the sun sits low in the sky, sunlight can enter deeply into the building and warm the interior. In summer, when the sun rises high overhead, roof overhangs and shaded porticos can block harsh rays and protect the house from overheating. It was an elegant solution because it required no moving parts, no fuel, and no maintenance. The only requirement was understanding the seasonal path of the sun. For Greek builders, this was not a luxury concept. It was the difference between a house that felt cold and dim and one that felt warm, bright, and livable. Even today, passive solar design still relies on the same principle. Orientation alone can dramatically influence comfort. The Romans expanded this knowledge into a far more ambitious form of engineering. In great public complexes, such as the Baths of Caracalla, they developed the hypocaust system, a heating method that turned the building itself into a giant thermal machine. Hot air from a furnace was directed beneath raised floors supported by brick pillars. As the heated air moved through the cavities below, it warmed the stone floors above. In some buildings, the air also traveled upward through channels in the walls, distributing warmth throughout enormous interior spaces. The brilliance of the system was that it did not merely heat the air, it heated the structure. Thick masonry absorbed the thermal energy, stored it, and released it gradually over time, even after the fire had weakened. This created an even, durable form of radiant comfort that could serve large public baths, halls, and chambers much more effectively than isolated fireplaces ever could. The Roman lesson was profound. When a building's own mass becomes part of the heating strategy, comfort becomes more stable and more efficient. In the desert regions of ancient Persia, builders solved the opposite problem. Their challenge was not how to preserve heat, but how to preserve cold. Their answer was the yakchal, a striking dome-shaped structure used for ice storage and food preservation. From the outside, a yakchal looked almost simple, like a giant mud-brick beehive rising from the landscape. But inside, it was a masterpiece of passive thermal engineering. The walls were extremely thick and coated with a special mortar that resisted both moisture and heat. Below ground, the storage chamber extended deep into the earth, where the surrounding soil acted as a thermal shield. Even when desert air rose above 110 F, the interior could remain dramatically cooler, cold enough to preserve ice harvested during winter. Some systems even used shallow pools and nighttime cooling to freeze water naturally before moving it into storage. No refrigeration unit, no compressor, no electric fan, only mass, shade, evaporation, and the steady help of the earth. The yakchal stands as proof that long before modern HVAC, people had already learned how to create stable indoor climates using the natural behavior of materials and ground temperature. Modern science has done more than simply admire these old ideas. It has measured them. Researchers studying thermal mass have shown that thick earthen or masonry walls can absorb heat slowly during the day and release it gradually many hours later. In one set of experiments with rammed earth construction, the warmest point inside the wall was found not at midday, but long after sunset. That delay is essential. It means a building can capture heat when it is abundant and release it when it is needed. Instead of allowing indoor temperatures to rise and fall sharply, thermal mass stretches warmth across time. The effect is not just to warm a room, but to smooth the rhythm of comfort itself. This principle explains why thick walls, earthen floors, and buried structures have performed so well for centuries. They do not fight temperature change with brute force. They slow it down. In a world obsessed with instant output and mechanical power, that slower strategy is often underestimated. But the data shows that it works. A modern version of this principle appeared in the 20th century with the development of the Trombe wall. French engineer Félix Trombe refined a simple but powerful design. A thick, dark-colored wall placed behind glass on the sun-facing side of a building. During the day, sunlight passes through the glass and heats the wall. Instead of releasing that heat immediately, the wall stores it and lets it move slowly inward. Hours later, often after sunset, the warmth begins to reach the interior living space. The result is a building that absorbs energy during the day and gives it back when temperatures fall. Early tests showed that a well-designed tromba wall could provide a large portion of a home's winter heating needs while dramatically reducing fuel consumption. It required no complicated machinery, only good orientation, glass, and mass. Once again, the principle was ancient, but the form was modern. Comfort could be achieved not by more mechanical systems, but by designing buildings to cooperate with natural energy flows. This same philosophy reappeared in one of the most radical housing experiments of the modern era, the Earthship. On the outskirts of Taos, New Mexico, architect Michael Reynolds developed homes built from earth-packed tires, heavy thermal mass, greenhouse glazing, and long underground air tubes. These houses were designed to stay comfortable without conventional furnaces or air conditioning. The buried earth tubes allowed incoming air to exchange heat with the cool, stable soil before entering the home. In winter, that meant the air arrived warmer than the freezing outdoors. In summer, it arrived cooler than the desert heat. Combined with insulation, solar gain, and thick walls, the result was a house that could maintain a surprisingly steady interior climate under extreme conditions. Earthships demonstrated that passive climate control was not just a historical curiosity. It could work now with modern occupants, modern expectations, and real performance data. Reynolds's designs were controversial, but they forced a question that still matters. If this can be done at a reasonable cost, why is it not standard practice? The answer lies less in physics than in economics. The HVAC industry is enormous, generating hundreds of billions of dollars globally each year. Residential heating and cooling alone represent a vast stream of profit through equipment sales, installation, servicing, replacement, and maintenance contracts. This creates a powerful incentive structure. Entire industries, training systems, certification bodies, and manufacturing chains depend on the assumption that indoor comfort must come from machines. Every new building that requires a furnace, compressor, or air conditioner strengthens that system. In this environment, passive solutions face an uphill battle, not because they fail technically, but because they disrupt established business models. A house that needs less equipment is less profitable to sell, less profitable to service, and less profitable to replace. The economics of the system favor complexity, ongoing dependency, and recurring cost. That bias extends into regulation. In many places, building codes require new homes to include heating systems capable of delivering a fixed minimum output, even if the structure itself is designed to maintain comfort through thermal mass, passive solar gain, and earth coupling. In other words, a house may be forced by law to install equipment it may barely need. The message is clear. Mechanical control is recognized, measurable, insurable, and familiar. Passive design, no matter how effective, is treated as secondary. Financial systems reinforce the same pattern. Appraisers and lenders often value homes according to square footage, finishes, and neighborhood comparisons, while giving little attention to low operating costs, energy independence, or resilience. As a result, a passive house may be undervalued compared with a conventional one, even when it saves far more money over time. Buyers are denied better financing because the market does not fully see the value of what the building actually does. When you look at the whole story, from ancient Greece and Rome to Persia, trombe walls, and earth ships, the conclusion becomes hard to avoid. Human beings have known for centuries that buildings can work with nature instead of fighting against it. The earth below us offers a stable thermal reservoir. Sunlight can be captured, stored, and delayed. Thick walls can absorb energy and release it gradually. Comfort can come from orientation, mass, and ground temperature just as much as from machines. The real obstacle is not technical possibility. It is the system of habits, regulations, incentives, and industries built around mechanical dependence. As energy prices rise and climate risks grow, that question becomes more urgent. We already know that passive climate control can work. The real question is why so many modern buildings are still designed as if that knowledge does not exist. Sometimes the cheapest and simplest answer is the one we are taught to overlook. If the choice were truly yours, would you still build comfort the same way? If this journey into the hidden depths of thermal science and ancient architecture has changed the way you think about your own home, please subscribe and like the channel. We are dedicated to uncovering the history and engineering that modern systems have tried to keep buried. Let's build a more sustainable future together. The next architectural treasure will be revealed soon.